Hey guys, back again with another video. This time a review on Cave Story. This game's made for like a bunch of different systems, and I'm playing the Switch version for this review. This is a game that's been out for a long time. It originally came out in 2004 on the PC, and it was a free game. Developed by one person. I can't pronounce his name, but he goes by the code name Pixel. And yeah, it's a really well-regarded game. A lot of people absolutely love this game. Now, previously I'd played like maybe 30 minutes to an hour of it on 3DS, and from what I hear, that's a good version of the game. It just has like these really ugly 3D visuals compared to like the really nice sprite art of like the original, but for whatever reason I just didn't stick with it, and I don't know, for whatever reason I didn't end up finishing it, even though I did kind of enjoy what I played. So anyways, they released this on the Switch not too long ago, a physical version, and it's the Cave Story Plus, so it's got like all this extra content and stuff like that. And it's basically the definitive version of the game because it's got the original. I don't think it's like the exact original art. I think it's like a little better, like the sprites are, I think, a little better than the original version. I could be wrong on that. I'm sorry, I haven't done actually a ton of research on that, but yeah. I decided, you know, I didn't have too many games to play on the Switch, and the price wasn't too outrageous for this game, so I decided, you know what, let's finally play Cave Story and see where all the love comes from. And I guess the interesting thing with this game is I feel like this is kind of like the first game to really kind of set off the whole indie explosion that happened around maybe, I feel like this was around maybe like 2005, 2006, when indie games started to become really popular with services like Xbox Live Arcade, and then Steam started to get pretty noticeable around that time as well. At least I'm pretty sure. But this was yeah, the originally PC, and it's, I don't know, I feel like this is kind of the game that kind of started the kind of the indie explosion. Like, so many games came afterwards, like Super Meat Boy, Braid, and things like that, which I think Braid was like, what, 2009 or something, 2008, 2009, but this came out, yeah, 2004, so it really, I feel like it was the first kind of indie game to get really popular and gain like this huge cult following, and yeah, it took the guy, I think, 5 years to develop the game, but anyways, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed this game quite a bit. I think Cave Story is great. I don't see too many people that dislike it. I've got some issues with it. We'll get to those later, but overall, I did really enjoy my time with it. It's a very short game. It maybe took me like 5-6 hours to finish. Like, it's perfect length for the type of game it is. We'll talk about the story first. There's not too much to say. The story is actually maybe a little more in-depth than you would expect for a game of this type. You basically play this character who awakens in a cave, and you have amnesia, and the main story is kind of like a save the world type storyline. You run across this evil doctor who's trying to use the inhabitants of the cave. He's like basically brainwashing them in a way, and he wants to control them to basically conquer the world. There's obviously more to the story than that, and I think the characters are the endearing part of this game, not really the story itself. There are some surprising aspects to it, though. It's honestly kind of dark. There's some really dark stuff in this game that I was kind of surprised by, even though a lot of the dialogue is kind of like not really cheery, but jokey in a lot of ways. But yeah, there's definitely moments where it's like, oh shit, that's really dark. But the game's not like explicitly dark. You have to really think about the situations, and then it's like then when you really think about it, it's like, oh wow, that's actually pretty dark. But yeah, the story is not super compelling, but there's not like a lot of dialogue in this game. There's not like a bunch of sequences that annoy you with like endless dialogue. And I do like the characters in this game. I think there's some really memorable characters, and there's a kind of a relationship you build with another character named Curly in this game. And it's actually really well done. It's entirely done through gameplay mechanics, which I always love that kind of thing. Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons did this excellently. So it's cool to see something like that way back in this game from like 2004. I don't really want to spoil any more than that, but I thought it was actually really well done how they handled that kind of relationship. Although there were some annoying aspects to it as well, but yeah, the story, it's fairly well written. It's engaging enough for a game of this type, but it's nothing mind blowing or anything like that. maybe surprisingly good though for the type of game this is. But gameplay. So I've always heard this game referred to as a Metroidvania, and after playing it, I don't really know why. There's definitely some elements of, say, Metroid, and I think the developer of this game was inspired by Metroid. The progression of this game, though, is actually pretty linear. Basically, the structure of the game, there's kind of like a main kind of village. It seems like a hub, but it's not really. There's basically a house in this beginning area with a teleporter, and you teleport to the different levels through this teleporter, and you're basically going from level to level in a linear fashion. It's just the levels themselves can be open-ended. For instance, one of the first levels in the game, you have to progress, you have to find a bunch of these dogs for this one character. So you have to do a bunch of backtracking within this single area. And eventually you'll find all the dogs, then you'll get past. But the majority of the game, you're just going from point A to point B. You're not backtracking to previous environments. There's only, I think, 1 or 2 times where you have to do this. So it doesn't have like the item-based progression that, say, Metroid has. You're not getting all these new abilities and weapons and going back to previous areas, getting new power-ups. There's only very slight elements of that. For instance, you'll get kind of like a jetpack in this game, and there are like maybe a few areas in previous locations where you can like use the jetpack to get like a new item. But other than that, yeah, it's a straight path with this game. But there definitely are some secrets here and there that do require some backtracking. But if you know, people refer to this as Metroidvania, but it's very light, like very light. Like this is fairly straightforward action side-scrolling game. But anyways, other than that though, you've got your gun that you kind of start with, and the cool thing with this game is how like the weapons you get and how you level them up. It's really neat. So basically you're running and jumping and shooting enemies. There's definitely platforming in this game. Some tricky platforming as well, but then you've got kind of gun combat, and sometimes it can feel like a bullet hell with the amount of enemies that are on screen. It definitely feels like a Metroid or a Mega Man when you're actually playing the game, but when you do get your weapons, you can kind of switch between them, but with like I think it was left and right trigger on the Switch controller, and you level up these weapons by getting like these shards that drop from enemies. And the level ups aren't permanent. If you say get your weapon to level 2 with enough shards, but you keep getting hit, it will actually level down, and the weapons get more powerful the more you level them up, and there's like a max level for each weapon. And this was a lot of the fun of this game came from testing out the different weapons, because like for instance, one weapon might have this very basic shot at level 1, but at level 3 it might have like these massive shots. And it's really cool the differences between levels on the different weapons, and that definitely adds like an element of strategy to the game as well. The better you do, the more powerful your weapons are going to be, and then you'll be able to like wreck bosses pretty easily. It's nothing super complicated or anything, but I really do like the level up system in this game. You also find like life capsules throughout the environments to increase your maximum health. The combat feels good. Like the game just feels excellent to control. Now, I think a big part of this was the fact that I was using the Switch Pro controller, which is an amazing controller. Like the D-pad on that thing is fantastic. Like this game plays like a dream with that controller. I have a feeling though, if I was trying to play with the Joy-Cons with that like button-style D-pad, I would probably struggle more, and I might have not felt like the controls were as good. But I do have to say, overall, the controls are really tight in this game. Like, it feels good to play. He definitely nailed that part of it. And the actual platforming, it has like the physics in this game are kind of floaty, but I think it really works with like the tile-based platforming that's actually in this game. A lot of cool enemy types in this game as well. The way the levels progress is really interesting as well. Some really cool gimmicks here and there. Like the level design overall is pretty strong. There are some annoying parts here and there. Some of the backtracking can get a little annoying, and some of the items you have to get are pretty well hidden. Honestly, too well hidden for like the main path of the game. One of the dogs, for instance, in that dog collecting part of the game was like in a really obscure spot. And then there's a few puzzles you'll find throughout the game as well. They're not too complicated. Sometimes the logic is a little iffy. Like it's got that kind of like old school logic thing with some of the puzzles, but it generally wasn't too bad. But yeah, bosses are in this game as well. For the most part, they're really fun. It's really fun figuring out the different patterns on them. And then basically the saving in this game works where you'll find like different parts of the environment, like a little healing thing that heals all your health, but then you'll find like little floppy disks throughout the environment to save your game. The save points are a little, I don't know, they can be a little frustrating sometimes. For instance, there's a lot of bosses in this game where the save point will be like right before the boss, and there's a bunch of dialogue before the boss, like the one that you just saw right here on screen. And some of these bosses are really tough. Like the game in general is fairly tough. It starts out easy enough, but towards the end it gets pretty nasty. So every time you die to these bosses, having to go through these dialogue sequences and not being able to skip through them is pretty frustrating. Although I guess that doesn't really have anything to do with the save system. But I wish, I don't know, I wish there was some way to like skip these big dialogue sequences before bosses. But I mean, other than that, there's not too much to cover with gameplay. It's just a really fun game, but it does bring me to the way this game handles endings, and then also the difficulty balance of this game. So there's multiple endings in this game, and a lot of the endings depend on what you do in certain sequences in this game. And for the most part, the good ending, first-time player is almost always going to be able to get the good ending in this game. It's nothing too obscure, and it's a decent ending, but there's a true ending in this game. And I've talked about true endings in videos before, how most of the time video games handle them really poorly, and even though I'm not opposed to the idea, I think it's just executed really poorly in a lot of games. And Cave Story might be one of the worst implementations of a true ending I've ever seen. I had to watch the true ending on YouTube, and it's not like a huge drastic difference between the good ending, but it's still the intended ending of the game. It's the canon ending, and I feel like most people are kind of want to try to achieve that ending. There's many problems with this, though. For one, the true ending is basically impossible to get unless you've played through this game like tens of times. Like, the amount of obscure bullshit to get to this ending is absolutely ridiculous. This is not going to be a spoiler, but for instance, one of the examples. Okay, so around halfway through the game, you'll come to this area where a character you met previously, like this doc, I think his name is Booster. He falls down this pit, and it looks like he gets injured. So, what is your gut reaction to that? Oh, let me go talk to him. He's injured. It's an NPC. You know, talk to NPCs. When someone plays a game like this, or almost any game, they're gonna want to talk to all the NPCs. So you go down to this tunnel and you talk to the doctor, and then he gives you this jetpack called the Booster 0.8. Guess what? Now you just fucked yourself for getting the true ending. You cannot get that true ending unless you find a way to reload your save. I think you might be able to quit the game, but as soon as you pick up that item, the Booster 0.8, that's it. The true ending's gone. You just failed it. Like, I have to imagine 99% of players that play this game the first time, and hell, maybe even playthroughs afterwards, are going to talk to him. It's just logic. So, to get the true ending, you have to not talk to him. You have to completely ignore him. And then a little bit later, you get a better version of the Booster 0.8. You get the 2.0. And then there's some other obscure bullshit after that having to do with Curly. You have to, like, basically save her. There's one part where she's in a bed, and then the game says, oh, do you want to leave her here? And then, you know, in my head, I'm just thinking, okay, leave her here so I can get her later. But no, you have to say, don't leave her here, and you pick her up, and then you have to, you know, get out of the area. There's another section of the game where I think she can drown if you're not quick enough, and you have to be standing on a certain platform. So yeah, this is the kind of bullshit in this game. This obscure bullshit, like this obscure sequence of events you have to follow to even unlock the path for the true ending. So that's already bad enough, but the actual true ending, you get to the very ending of the game, and then like this door opens up, this tunnel basically, and then you're at the final stretch. It's basically this extra dungeon to get to to finish the true ending. And this is where the game's difficulty just completely goes off the wall. The true ending in this game is ROM hack levels of difficult. Like, it's like I want to be the guy levels of just sheer sadism. Like, it was absolutely insane. So this true ending is like this, I want to say it's probably 15 to 20 minute section with multiple one-hit kills, like extremely tight platforming with no margin of error. And then at the end of it, you have a boss that has 4 forms that can very easily kill you. And if you die at any part throughout this like massive section that is so easy to die at, you have no saving. There's no saving whatsoever. You have to go back all the way to the beginning. It's absolutely fucking bonkers. Like, it's where the game all of a sudden becomes like this bullet hell ROM hack. Like, it's just, the difficulty level just gets completely ridiculous at that point. And I guess some people will probably like the challenge, but me, I just hate the fact that they locked the true ending behind this. Like, I don't mind it if it was just like this optional secret dungeon for players, you know, for hardcore players that want like an absolute challenge. But locking the true ending behind it is honestly really frustrating, at least for me. Now, maybe some people aren't going to be bothered by this, and a lot of people are probably just fine with the way the true ending ends. And I guess it is, but I don't know. I was just really frustrated by the way the game handled the true ending. I tried it maybe... I felt like I've tried it maybe like 50 times. It was also going to be almost near impossible for me anyways, because I didn't have the upgraded basic gun. I think it's called the Spur, which that's another obscure thing. Early in the game, you have to find a character that wants to trade you a machine gun for your standard weapon. And if you trade her, you immediately fail. You can't get the Spur weapon. So yeah, again, more obscure bullshit like that. But yeah, the difficulty balance in this game is, I don't know, it's irritating. The way the true ending is handled, I really don't like. But that's about it, though. Other than that, the game is really enjoyable. I really had a great time with it. There's not too much to complain about, and honestly, the true ending, it's probably a minor complaint at the end of the day. It sounds like this horrible thing, but it's, again, the true ending is, or the good ending rather, is fine enough. And yeah, it's just, I don't know, it was just a little disappointing as someone that likes to get the best ending possible in a game. I don't know, it was a little frustrating to me, but moving on, the visuals, I love the way this game looks. I love the 2D art. Some people might think it's like ugly looking. I really like the different environments. They can feel like a little, like maybe a little samey, but that's mostly because you're in this cave environment. You know, the game's called Cave Story, so you know, it's just the variations of different cave environments. But I don't know. I really like the sprite work to this game. I think it's all well animated as well. I like the character designs quite a bit. It's just really charming. I really like the look of the game. It's way better than that the 3D version on 3DS. Audio. Soundtrack is the best part of the game. The soundtrack in this game is phenomenal. And it kind of blew my mind to read that the developer of this game, Pixel, he hadn't composed any music at all before developing this game. That blew my mind, because the music in this game is just, oh, it's so good. It provides such a great atmosphere to the game. A lot of like melodic, kind of subdued, like sad sounding songs, and then some really cheery, upbeat songs that are super catchy. They get stuck in your head. I love like this style of music, this like chiptune, NES, Super Nintendo style music. I've always loved it, and this guy, I don't know, he came up with this great soundtrack. It reminded me of Mega Man a lot, actually, in a lot of ways, which, I mean, Mega Man series has consistently fantastic music, so yeah, the soundtrack, I liked every single song in this game. The one song that stood out to me the most plays during the Outer Wall area. Like, it is just amazing. Like, I remember I just put down the controller for a bit and just listened to it when it first came up. I was just like, wow. Really impressed by the music in this game, especially when combined with like the pixel art in this game, and it feels like a game that was made like back in the 16-bit era. And I think that was one of the goals that he tried to accomplish with this game, and I think he succeeded with flying colors. The audio-visual presentation of this game is top-notch. But yeah, that about covers it for Cave Story. I mean, it's a short game, so yeah, kind of a short review, although it's almost 20 minutes now, so I guess I had a lot more to say about it than I thought. Great game. I don't think it was this amazing game for me. I know a lot of people love to replay this game over and over. I might come back to it in the future, but it's kind of a one and done type game for me. It's not like one of my top 5 favorite indie games or anything like that, but it was nice to finally play this game, and I do understand where all the love comes from, and I would highly recommend it. If you haven't played this game, give it a shot. The Switch version's a great version too. There's a lot of there's these different challenges you unlock, I'm pretty sure, as well. I think you can play as Curly as well. There's a lot of extra content like that too, so it's a good version. So yeah, that's it, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.